Hello everyone, I hope we're all having a wonderful day. In this short video today, I'm going to just go over some of the arguments to say that primaries and caucuses are good, they're beneficial, they've improved the democratic system in America, and some of the arguments to say actually there's some serious problems with primaries and caucuses, and perhaps some serious changes or reforms are required. Now, in order to do this, what I want you to do is to use the Bennett book. I don't have the page numbers to hand, but if you look on Teams where it is scanned, it's got the main arguments on there for and against primaries and caucuses. So that should be the basis of what I would like to do. However, what I'm going to go through in this video, I want to go through some more up-to-date examples from the Bennett book of some of the arguments for and against, some of the examples. Also use the previous YouTube video where I was explaining what was happening in 2020, because again, you can use some of that information for this. I also suggest that when you write up these arguments for and against on the table in your work booklet, again, just thinking about if this was an essay question in the exam, what points kind of marry up? What are the natural counter arguments to some of the points being made? So again, when you're doing it, try and put, the argument for and then the counter argument kind of on the same line, or put an arrow to them or something. Again, it will just help you for revision and be thinking about, how to do this if it came in an essay, what could be your main points. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a few details from the 2020 primaries to perhaps highlight a couple of points which again you can use in some of these arguments. Now this is quite a little bit small, I grant it, but this was the turnout in the 2016 primaries. I haven't included 2020 because with all the COVID stuff, some of those later ones were a little bit kind of, I won't say dubious, but obviously that would have had a big impact on turnout. So I wanted to give you some stuff from a regular primary and caucus season. Also, this one was one where both the Republicans and the Democrats together were having primaries and caucuses. And you can see on here about the turnout. So P, which is down here, are primaries. C, which are down here, are caucuses. You can see the turnout for caucuses was less, or fewer, whatever the correct phrase is, than the primaries. So the lowest turnout in a primary in 2016 was Louisiana, LA, and it was 21%, so voted. Louisiana, from memory, is one of the latter states, or one of the later states to have a primary or caucus. By that stage, both the parties already chosen their candidate. Trump and or Clinton had gained their majority of delegates way before this primary. Maybe a reason why people didn't vote in the Louisiana primary. But the highest caucus was actually 17%, which was below the lowest primary. Iowa, the first caucus, only 17% as well. And then you look at some of these, Arkansas is AK, or is it Alaska? One or the other. 6.5%, Maine, ME, 6.8%. So the turnout is really poor from caucuses. Again, might not be surprising when you consider, how it takes an entire evening and only committee people tend to go, etc., etc. Interesting how New Hampshire wasn't the highest turnout for the primaries. Actually Wisconsin at 62%. But there again, 53% is quite a credible amount. And in fact, the turnout in presidential elections for the actual real election is only usually about 55 to 60%. So, it's not too bad there. The other thing to note about any primaries and caucuses is that once the candidate reaches the majority, there's no real point, there's no real contest in some of those later ones. And again, New York here is one of the last states to have a primary. It was as well in 2020. Yet, by that stage, the candidates had already been sorted out. So, again, it does seem a bit odd how some of these big populated states are right at the very end of the process, where they've basically got no influence anymore because it's already been decided. It's one reason why California in 2020 moved their primary to Super Tuesday to try and increase their turnout and influence. This was the spending in the 2020 primaries, the top kind of spenders, so to speak, on adverts. And again, what's quite interesting about this, because usually the person who spends the most often does the best, but actually that wasn't the case in 2020. So this was as of March the 3rd, so fairly early on. So Michael Bloomberg spent $560 million on adverts. He actually gained one state and 50 odd delegates, and that was it, and dropped out on early March. Tom Steyer, $210 million. He's a philanthropist and an environmental kind of person. big businessman. He didn't win any delegates. Trump 60 million, Bernie Sanders 55, people to jail. But notice how Joe Biden only $60 million by March the 3rd, yet he's the guy that actually won the primaries. So it does kind of suggest that money doesn't always win in these things. Okay, this is the amount which they raised. Okay, this was the 2016 primaries and caucuses. So in 2016, you can see how Jeb Bush actually himself didn't raise a massive amount, but relied on these super PACs. We'll do those at a later date. It's basically pressure groups and organised corporations and stuff. He had, far outpaced any rival in the amount which he actually raised. But then he didn't win anything, and he actually dropped out after quite early on. I think it was after South Carolina, like the 4th primary or something like that. Clinton, okay, she actually did get the nomination in the end. Ted Cruz, but then notice Donald Trump is, I can't see where. Oh yeah, Trump's a long way down, isn't he? A long way down. So again, that's making the same point as the previous one. Money doesn't always win these things in recent times. Okay, so the other problem with primaries and caucuses is, of course, they're running adverts against each other. What that can lead to sometimes is a damaged candidate coming out of the process. It can also reveal deep divisions in your party, which again might encourage people to think, oh, the Democrats are really divided, all these attack ads and stuff. I'm going to vote Republican next time. So it can have those problems. Now I'm going to show you some of the adverts from some recent primaries and caucuses. This first one was done towards the end of the Democrat primary season in 2008, when it was between Clinton and Obama. And this advert was done by the Clinton campaign to really kind of highlight Obama's inexperience. And it was noticeable how the Republicans, once Obama got the nomination, kept highlighting his lack of experience. So they were kind of using this Clinton advert as kind of the basis of where they were going to go and attack him on. So if you just give me a second or two, I will put up that advert for you.
It's 3 a.m. and your children are safe and asleep. But there's a phone in the White House and it's ringing. Something's happening in the world. Your vote will decide who answers that call. Whether it's someone who already knows the world's leaders, knows the military, someone tested and ready to lead in a dangerous world. It's 3 a.m. and your children are safe and asleep. Who do you want answering the phone?
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
Okay, so you can see there how the Clinton campaign was using negative adverts against Obama, which could have actually damaged him in the election, but as we know, Obama went on to win the presidential election in the end. These adverts were done by Ted Cruz attacking Donald Trump. And again, Ted Cruz was a social conservative from Texas, and obviously he and Trump had a big falling out, I think it's probably fair to say. So we'll watch, I think we'll watch the first two of these adverts done by Ted Cruz against Donald Trump. And again, some of these things could have actually led to a damaged candidate emerging.
I'm Ted Cruz, and I approve this message. Vera Koking's home was all she had left, but it stood in Donald Trump's way and the limousine parking lot he wanted for his casino. To him, she was a nobody. So Trump schemed with Atlantic City government to force Koking from her home using eminent domain.
You're bullying these people out because
This is a government case. This is not Donald Trump.
Yes, it's Donald Trump. It's you and your cronies in government working together.
Public power, private gain.
I offered her a lot of money out of this, a little thing called heart.
He doesn't have no heart. Trump bankrolled politicians to steamroll the little guy. A pattern of sleaze stretching back decades. Worse, Trump still supports eminent domain today.
Do you support taking private property for private use?
I am for that. Eminent domain is wonderful. Yes, we have to use the power of eminent domain.
Trump uses power for personal gain. Imagine the damage he could do as president.
Donald Trump is not a conservative because he's extreme on abortion.
Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice.
You would not ban it?
No.
Or ban partial birth abortion?
No, I am pro-choice in every respect.
Does this sound conservative?
I am pro-choice in every respect. I am pro-choice in every respect. I am pro-choice in every respect.
For partial birth abortion, not a conservative.
Keep the Promise One is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, so those adverts give a flavour of some of the attacks that take place amongst the candidates. You also see adverts where they're saying how wonderful they are. If you just go onto YouTube and type in Bernie Sanders adverts, you see some of those, for example. But you can see from these adverts, they can be quite vicious and quite nasty, and that, as I keep saying, can lead to damaged candidates. It can also lead to the parties not looking united, and when you have the national convention at the end, it often seems to be really important that the candidates come together and kind of have a big loving situation. Again, that doesn't always happen. Some of the, like Ted Cruz, I believe, refused to go to the 2016 National Party Convention when they officially nominated Donald Trump, which again could have actually derailed his campaign, but I think Trump's a bit of a one-off in many ways. Anyway, I hope some of those videos and stuff and some of those stats give you some extra stuff to write in for some of those arguments for and against primaries. So that needs doing. Any problems, let me know. Yeah, so I'll see you all in the not too distant future.